Good morning, everyone. My name is Rose Spickler. I am the Director of Education and Engagement of Michigan Sustainable Business Forum, and I'm very pleased to welcome you to today's presentation of Michigan Sustainable Business Forum's webinar series. For those of you who are not familiar with our organization, the forum is a collaboration of businesses and institutions working to promote practices that advance climate leadership, social justice, and the creation of a circular economy. We host events and programs throughout the state, including this monthly Michigan Sustainable Business Forum webinar series. With support from Schupan Recycling and the Environmental Protection Agency. Excuse me. If you are not yet a member of Michigan Sustainable Business Forum, you can become a member today at misbf.org/join, or you can send us an email for more information. I'd like for you to take a look at the next slide. We would love to invite you to join us for the next 2 iterations of this Safe and Sustainable webinar series, Green Restaurants, as well as the following one, Engaging Staff and Customers in the Transition. And you can find more information about these events in the links in the chat or at misbf.org/events. Now I'd like to introduce our program for today, Safe and Sustainable Foodware, Introduction to Reusable Foodware Products. For our attendees, please note that you can share thoughts and questions with the panelists or all attendees through either the question and answer function or through the chat function. We'll have time at the end of the presentations for open question and answers. Before we dive into today's session, I just want to take a minute to share a bit of context for this webinar and the broader series. This Safe and Sustainable Foodware webinar series is part of a project that was funded by the US EPA through its Pollution Prevention or P2 program. The goal of the project is to help food service operations reduce the use of foodware that contains PFAS, or also known more commonly as forever chemicals, and to support the transition to safer, more sustainable alternatives. A key focus of our work is practicality. So we know that a lot of restaurants, cafeterias, institutions are already aware of compostable and reusable options, but awareness doesn't always translate into action. So there are really real barriers: cost, performance, logistics, vendor relationships, and uncertainty about what actually works in different settings. So this project is designed to go beyond high-level education. So through this webinar series, the case studies we've been doing, and direct technical support, we're focused on sharing real-world examples, implementation strategies, and lessons that we've learned from early adopters. So the idea is to give operators information that they can actually use to make informed decisions that fit their operations. This work is a collaboration between the University of Illinois Chicago, MiSBF, and a growing network of partners across the region. What we've learned through the process has kind of been turned into tools and resources that can be shared widely, like this webinar series. And today's session on reusable foodware fits squarely into that goal. So exploring the different models that exist, how they work in practice, and what to consider if reusables might be a good fit for an operation. And with that, I'd like to start by introducing our first speaker for today, Maya Manibusan, Marketing Manager for Bold Reuse. Maya, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Rose, for the introduction, and I'm very excited to be here today. Let me just pop up my slides here, and we'll get started. One second. There we go. Is everyone able to see my slides?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Maya Manibusan. I am the marketing manager with Bold Reuse, and we are a company that is aimed to eliminate waste through reuse. We've been around under a different name called GoBox many moons ago, and I've been with the company for now 4 years. And we are operating currently in Portland, Oregon, Chicago, Seattle, Washington, Phoenix, Arizona, the Bay Area, and Kansas City as well. And since implementing, we have eliminated over 6 million single-use items from landfills, which is really something that we're super proud of. And today I'll be sharing some background on reusable foodware. What is reusable foodware? What are the types of materials that we use? And then at the end of my time with you all, I will also be sharing some case studies of examples of where we have implemented reuse in stadiums and venues across the United States. So without further ado, Let's get into it. So historically, disposables were seen as cheap, convenient, and easy to implement. And disposables are really the true enemy when it comes to reuse. But those costs are rising in terms of disposables. So not just financially in terms of how much it costs to buy these products, but in terms of waste management, procurement, and even brand reputation, those costs are finally rising and catching up with many companies and organizations who utilize them on a large scale. Companies are now looking for real alternatives that are both sustainable and cost effective. And this shift is what's opening the door for reusable foodware systems to become the new standard in foodware packaging across the board. And before we dive into really the nitty-gritty of everything today, I wanted to highlight some of the organizations that we at Bold Reuse have partnered with to implement reuse systems, and showed that these are venues that represent venues, schools, and municipalities that are leading the way in reducing single-use waste. And they've actually seen firsthand how reuse can work at scale. So you'll see some familiar names here. I think maybe some of these organizations have people that are actually on this call today. And these partnerships have helped shaped our approach at Bold Reuse to implementing systems that are practical, cost-effective, and sustainable, which are really the three pillars that we think of in terms of reusable foodware and reuse as a system. And not only do these logos represent that, but really, I think it's great to see these logos on a screen because it represents the shift of reuse being something that only a small group of people were doing and implementing in their systems and in their operations to, things that are more mainstream now. And we're seeing that the mainstream markets are catching up to us. So I thought that would be nice to just start us off with, so you can see that it's not just something we're talking about in theory, but this is something that is being put into practice in everyday operations. Now, I wanted to really start off here with talking about these reuse standards. So this is something that is new. When I actually first started my job at Bold Reuse, we did not have these standards that were in place. And a lot of reuse companies that have been around for a long time. And again, when I'm talking reuse companies, I'm meaning companies that are providing the service of providing reusable containers and washing and sanitizing them and getting them back to where they need to go to so that they can continue to operate in a circular system. And PR3 now is an organization that has come up along with CSA to design reuse standards in the same standards that recycling has, composting has, and also all of our other waste streams have. And now PR3 is coming on to create these standards. So what I've done was I pulled some of these to show you all today, and so that we can look at what counts as reusable packaging under this standard. And this is something that Bold Reuse is starting to align with in terms of how we choose our reusable packaging for our clients. So it applies to primary packaging that touches the product directly. It is returned to a collection point. It's washed, redistributed, and refilled. And then also can be plastic, glass, metal, and includes cups, bottles, trays, clamshells, bowls, and other foodware. And when we're talking about reusable packaging, it is part of a system where you use it, you return it, you wash it, maybe you refill it, and then it is reused and put back into the system again. Oh, thank you. I see that there was a note. I hope that this helps my screen now. Okay, I see some head nods. That's good. Thank you for the Denise for notifying me on that. And so these standards are really what we are looking to when we're thinking about reusable foodware. Now, and to add on to that, we are also making sure that when a product is used in a reuse system, it's durable for many uses, right? We want it to be used again and again and again, and they're used for different cycles and able to withstand washing, chipping, shattering. We also want to make sure that they're safe materials, they don't have chemicals leaching out of it. We want to make sure we're taking care of the human health part of things first and foremost. And also, of course, designed for repeated food contact and washing. And we want to make sure that it's also still recyclable. So even reusables must align with real recycling systems, because every product unfortunately does have an end of life. It is very rare that we, in today's world, that we have a true item that is reused till to the end. But at the end of it, we want to make sure that it is recycled, so that it's not just going straight to landfills. And then washable by design, of course, we want to make sure it's it's able to be washed. And then trackable, so it's durable enough so it can support labels, so that when we get to that point of tracking, these items can also be tracked with QR codes or RFID, which are chips that go into these, and we can better understand and analyze how many times a product is truly used and coming back and forth to a system. Now, moving on to the next slide, I want to address, okay, so we know what are the alternatives to single-use, to reuse items. And I wanted to highlight the single-use alternatives to reuse. So of course, we have our single-use plastics. It is obviously used because it is very cheap and it's familiar. It is what we have shifted to, whereas before we were in everyday fast food chains. Before fast food chains came on, we were washing dishes, we were using them, the milkman came, and there were bottle deposits. But now we are kind of on this fast-paced track of needing things. We want to see our trash go away, and single-use plastics is what has been seen as the easiest one for that. But the limitation to that is that it's a linear system. It's not circular, so it does go to our landfills, and it doesn't address the problem of waste creation. And then there's compostable disposables, which are seen as a more sustainable alternative. And in some places, I am not too familiar with Michigan or Chicago or the East Coast, but I know that in Portland, Oregon, some of the composters actually stopped taking in compostable foodware because the foodware was still being lined with PFAS, and that was degrading the compost material that was being sent to farms. So no, in many places in Oregon, you cannot compost your foodware, which was a really big issue for a lot of people who were diverting waste through compost. And then again, the cost of compostables is very high. So that's another limitation in terms of getting buy-in from large venues or stadiums or any organizations that have a bottom line to meet. And then the other alternative to reuse in terms of single use are aluminum disposables. So those are still recyclable, which is good. We're getting somewhere with aluminum disposables. When those started to come up everywhere, that was great because as we know, aluminum can be recycled again and again. But the limitation to that is that the process for creating aluminum and also for recycling it is a little more energy intensive than compared to a reuse system, which I'll get to in my next slide a little bit more in depth. And it's not necessarily always recycled back into cups. So it's being recycled into another material that may have, components of aluminum, but it's not necessarily recycled back into those cups. Whereas with reuse, that same cup that's produced is used again and again and again as a cup. So these options manage waste, but reuse prevents it. So, and that's what we're really tackling on with reuse, is that we're preventing waste before it is created. Oops. Okay, so now why reuse matters. I have this graph here on the screen that shows the carbon impact of cups in a range of materials. And what you'll see is that compared to single use, reuse reduces our greenhouse gas emissions, water consumption, resource extraction, energy utilization, waste and litter generation, and of course, the impact on human health. And at Bold Reuse, we work with a range of materials. We are product agnostic. So we use polypropylene number 5, stainless steel, and glass products. And I'll get into the reasons and use cases for those reusable materials. But again and again, what we've seen, and this is a graph that we've pulled from Upstream Solutions, which is a leader in reuse, in helping other organizations to get on board with reuse. But PPE number 5 cups are still have the lowest carbon impact in comparison to, of course, your number one plastic, your number one plastics, your aluminum recyclables, and then your compostable single-use cups. And that's taking into consideration the entire life cycle of these cups and these materials from production to end of life. So diving deeper into a little bit more about these materials, we have polypropylene number 5, which can look like this. It could be a tray. You might be familiar with some of these clamshells. And then the reusable polypropylene number 5 cups, which are very popular among stadiums. And then you may have seen some of these coffee cups pop up, and those are all polypropylene number 5, which is considered the safest sort of plastic and most durable. It is what you'll find used in baby bottles, in all sorts of things. And a really fun anecdote that I think we've came across with Bold Reuse is that a lot of concern has been on like the microplastics that come from polypropylene number 5. And while we don't have an in-depth study of it, we do have a customer that is a semiconductor manufacturer, and they work in bunny suits and clean rooms, and they need to make sure that their reusable cups have no sort of particle shed coming off of them onto their bunny suits when they go out for a break and then go back into the labs where they're creating microchips. And before they could even sign off on reuse, they had to do a particle shed test on these cups, these polypropylene number 5 cups that you see on the screen here, and there was no shedding coming from it. So we are confident in saying that we know that there's very minimal shedding that comes from these, without having an in-depth study on it. But just to know that it can be used in a clean room, we feel really good about that. The next alternative, or the next type of material, is stainless steel. This is very popularly used amongst school cafeterias. They can be in the form of cups, trays, of course, utensils are a very popular use case for stainless steel, and other sorts of bowls and plates. Basically anything you could eat food off, there's a stainless steel option. And then, of course, glass is another commonly used one. And this is a certain type of shatterproof glass that I have on screen from a company called Tossware. And they also create great reusable products that can be used again and again and again. So just diving a little bit deeper into this, and apologies for my pause here. And there we are. Sorry, I lost my screen, everybody, which I'm sure if you are sharing screens often, you can understand the amount of tabs that can be open sometimes. But again, I want to reiterate that at Bold Reuse, we are product agnostic. So the right material that we use depends on setting, safety, operations, and cost for our clients. And I kind of already touched on this, but again, PP number 5 is lightweight, durable, and financially practical for high volume environments. When we're talking about reusable products at scale, we're also really talking about costs, because a lot of the people who are switching from single use to reuse do want to be at least similarly close in cost to their single-use alternatives, which are dirt cheap. And what we find is that this product is more cost comparable to the single-use items. And especially if people are already using compostable products, then you'll see a really similar price between those two. And that it works well in stadiums, events, and large venues because they are lightweight. That is a very practical transition from single use for a lot of the operations people who are implementing these reusable products at a restaurant or a stadium or a school. Stainless steel works well in schools or cafeterias, and we also use them in a bunch of municipal programs with the Seattle Public Utilities, where they're launching reuse across events around the city. It is extremely durable. It has a long lifespan, but it is heavy in very large volumes, which our operations team found out the hard way. They are very heavy to lug around, but we've come up with solutions for that for sure. And then reusable glass, where that works well is premium spaces and hospitality environments. It is a more expensive alternative, as well as stainless steel can be a little bit more expensive, but depending on what experience you want and what materials you want to use, any of these materials match the standards that we were talking about earlier on in the slides. And it has an elevated experience, of course, for reusable glass. And it does have a little bit more resource intensive to produce if you're looking at the entire carbon impact of all of these products. But again, I want to reiterate that the most sustainable choice is the product that is used again and again and again. And any of these products can generally be used multiple times. And I did see a brief question that was saying like how many times can these reusable cups, Upstream Solutions, which has done the most in-depth studies, say that that reusable cups in polypropylene number 5 can be used up to like 300 times. We at Bold Reuse we currently finished up a life cycle analysis of our cups. And while I can't share that information with you all yet, as we're still having it audited and fixed, that information is coming out shortly, where we actually tested the life cycle of a cup that is actually being used in a reuse system. And that is a great segue to my next slide. So now that we've covered the why and the materials that are commonly used in reuse, I wanted to also take a look at how reuse actually works in some of the most high pressure, high volume environments, which are sports and entertainment venues who have thousands of guests a night, millions of guests a year. And so in these next few slides, I'm going to zoom into some of the programs that we've launched at the Moda Center in Portland, Oregon, and then with Climate Pledge Arena in Seattle, Washington. And it's really awesome to see how these sports and entertainment venues are leading the shift to reusables, where just a few years ago, it seemed nearly impossible for reuse to work in such high volume environments, and single use only seemed like the only option. So diving into Rip City Reuse, which is the reusable cup program at the Moda Center, which is the home to the Portland Trailblazers and also one of Portland's largest venues for concerts and community events. This program was the first large-scale reuse program ever launched by Bold Reuse, but it was also the first arena-wide reusable cup program to ever be launched in the US, which was a really great moment for reuse to show just what's possible. And I wanted to touch on this because prior to using reuse, Moda Center was using compostable products for all of their food and drinkware. But back in 2022 or 2023, their composter stopped accepting those compostable products because of the degradation that was happening to the quality of compost sent to local farms. So this led to a drastic decline in waste diversion from that stadium. And leadership at that time decided, okay, why don't we pivot? Instead of going back to the recyclable cups that get lost in the landfill waste streams, why don't we just try reuse? Bold Reuse was local to only Portland at the time, and the rest is history. And it's really cool because since then we've diverted 1.4 million single-use cups from landfills, and that's since launching in 2023. It is now a live program that just works like clockwork, and it started as a pilot program and then just grew and grew, and fans love it. And we are now seeing about a 90% average return rate for that program, and it's working, and we're showing that reuse can work in a high volume environment. And so this really led and paved the way for other programs to launch And one that I wanted to touch on again today was also with Climate Pledge Arena. They are aimed to be the most sustainable arena in the world. And I think they're doing a really great job at it. If you've ever been or had the pleasure of going to this arena, it is amazing. Everything is super sustainable. They even have a big wall full of tree, like a tree wall is what they call it, which is great. And there is no landfill waste stream inside the arena whatsoever. So anything that comes in and out of the arena must be either compostable, reusable, or recyclable. And prior to using to using reusable cups, they were using the aluminum ball cups, but they wanted to give reuse a try to try and make the system a lot more circular and keep their cups within the stadium over and over again. So when you go into the stadium, you'll get one of these cups, and then you'll see a sign that prompts you on their waste bins to return your reusable cup, and then it happens. And since launching that, we have helped to, this number is actually probably a little outdated. I'm sure it's more than this now, but since launching this in October of last year, we have helped to eliminate 238,749 single-use cups from going into landfills, and that equates to about 11,000 pounds of waste diverted from landfills. And that's a number that we'll just continue to see grow and grow and grow. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. So I'm going to stop sharing now. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Maya. I would now like to turn it over to Connie Lilley, Michigan Territory Director and Green Schools Coordinator for We Reuse. Connie, take it away.
Hi there. How are you? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yep.
So my name is Connie Lilley. I am the Michigan Territory Director and Green School Coordinator. I'm located in Michigan. However, We Reuse is a national company. We are a veteran woman-owned company, and today I'm going to talk about the health, economic, and environmental benefits of reusable, particularly stainless steel foodware. So today I'm going to talk about the problems of forever chemicals in our plastics and styrofoam, why stainless steel is most durable and safest choice, why made in the USA matters. I will talk about a national subsidy program with one of our partners to help reduce single-use plastic. Also, we have a partner in our circular economy grant from the state of Michigan to help Michigan organizations make the switch to reusable stainless steel foodware. And we'll review a couple of our exciting case studies for our schools. A lot of this is focused on schools. That's where we do a lot of our work. However, this presentation and the information can pertain to any kitchen anywhere. It can be really any type of business. So let's start with the human health problems. And I'm sure many of you know this, but in case you didn't know that most of our plastics are made from oil and gas, and turning these substances into plastics involves adding more additives. I was a little surprised when I heard the volume of chemicals that can be put into production, and it's over 16,000 chemicals. And more than 3,200 of them are chemicals of concern. So we will go a little bit more into that now, particularly in styrofoam, which is really just a name brand. We all say styrofoam, kind of like when we say Kleenex, it's just tissue, but styrofoam does contain styrene. I think the most dangerous thing that we see out there is when schools or hospitals put hot food on styrofoam, because there is some proof that the styrene does leach out onto the styrofoam and into our bodies. So it's kind of the same idea why you don't want to put plastic into the microwave. Things are opening up, and it can transfer to the food and the drink that we have. Since we work a lot with schools, do want to note that the American Academy of Pediatrics basically says no kids should be eating off of styrofoam. It can disrupt their hormones and endocrine system. It can cause higher rates of cancer, obesity, and reproductive problems. I'm sure we all know we got to do everything we can to keep these dangers away from our children. It's very important. So I was on a little mission to find out how many foam trays are still out there in schools each year, and I was a little surprised by the statistic that I came up. I knew there was a lot, but this is quite a bit. The Ocean Conservancy has it at 5.76 billion trays still used in schools this year in the US. So plastic foam, as you may know, is hard to recycle, right? We can only take our styrofoam to certain recyclable locations, and they got to have specific equipment for it. And if you don't recycle it, it's just going to go into our landfills. And it's also non-biodegradable waste that we got to be careful not to do that. So it kind of becomes this conundrum. And sometimes you're trying to figure out what to do with it. And unfortunately, most people are just going to throw it into the trash. Styrofoam or plastic foam is banned in many countries, and there are some sort of ban in 12 states already across the country. So, just showing what types of trends that are happening across the country and what people are working on to get rid of styrofoam. So there's many environmental benefits of reusable foodware. And obviously, the first is to reduce landfill. One school with an average of 1,000 students can eliminate 3 tons of garbage annually, and that's by switching to reusable foodware. That's an average school washing dishes in-house. You can see there on the left, that's pretty much what a regular school looks like when they're throwing away the styrofoam into the trash, along with the milk cartons. And there's a big trend now to push milk dispensers, which we're, of course, very happy about that, because many of those milk cartons, the milk doesn't get drank and also gets thrown into the trash. You can imagine how heavy that is. And some of those milk cartons are also lined with some plastic. You can see on the right there, that is a little gal from a school in Detroit, Michigan. She's still using a plastic cup, but we're getting there. We just created our stainless steel cups. So now we don't even have to use it. We have the sporks, the trays, and the cups available now. So that is our tray on the lower right-hand side. So let's go through a case study real quick here. We're super excited to say that Central Elementary in Davison, Michigan, switched to stainless steel reusable sporks and trays. This gave them a big reduction to landfill, so that all their styrofoam and forks and spoons are not going into the trash. And that is eliminating over 2,000 pounds of plastic waste each school year. And I can tell you some of the schools I've worked with have just replaced the plastic silverware. And I can tell you even that makes a difference. It really is quite amazing. Jennifer, the school food supervisor, talked about how important it was to teach this to our children. And when I went into this school after we implemented this program and got to talk to the kids, you can see them raising their hands there. It was very, very exciting. Most of them understood why they didn't want to put it into the trash. They got that. They understood that. Most of them liked the tray. They thought it was shiny and I can divide my food up. What I didn't hear a lot of that we want to start teaching our kids is why it's important to be eating off of the stainless steel tray instead of the styrofoam, and not to be eating from plastic cups. And a few kids did say that, but this is just something that we're starting to see more and more, that there's a lot of really good educational components to helping these schools make the switch. And what I think is great about it is they also go home and they take it into their personal lives. So, you know how they all have their little stainless steel bottles now? Let's teach them about the silverware and the plates that they should be eating off of, not styrofoam and not plastic if you can help it. So this was a really exciting program. And they also had some economic benefits. So we have the health, the environmental, and now the economic, which, let's face it, most schools are going to be looking at the economics, right? So in addition to the grants that I'll talk about in a minute, let's talk about how much they're not buying in the future. So this particular school they are no longer purchasing single-use foodware. So every year they're going to save over $9,000. And they are no longer, well, they are still paying some trash haul fees, but it's a savings, right? They don't come as much. I think they reduced it to maybe a quarter of trash bags going out the door. So that's a total of over $11,000 a year. So there's a great economic benefit to it. This is a summary of 4 schools in Michigan. You can read the statistics there. There's proof. This is for in-house dishwashing. We are working with schools that might not have a dishwasher. We have some good programs to hopefully get them one. We have some great movement in that area. So it's just been a great program so far, and we're hoping to do a lot more schools. There are some other miscellaneous benefits to reusable foodware. It kind of goes on and on. Personally, I think there's a lot of reasons. I already covered the main ones, but just reducing deliveries to and from a building, even a school, I think is great. It's reducing your carbon emissions. It's cleaner atmosphere and air outside of school. You can reduce the need for stocking all that styrofoam and plastic in a closet. I think if you're buying single-use foodware, you got to remember somebody's making that. They're making every single piece every single time you buy it. So by not buying it, you are reducing manufacturing carbon emissions from all over the place, wherever they manufacture them, wherever they transport them to you. It's not just about on-site. It's about everything else that's going on in your community. If you're a business and you're trying to reduce your scope emissions, it's extremely beneficial, right? You're trying to reduce emissions on getting products to your building, especially scope 3 emissions. Made in the USA is very important. It's a good way to put that on your report if you're becoming a LEED accredited building. LEED certified building, if you're becoming a Michigan Green School and all these other third-party certifications, reducing waste is obviously something that you should be able to get a credit for. So as you may know, shipping over the ocean is the largest contributor to your probably greenhouse gas emissions when you're purchasing something. It dramatically increases your carbon footprint. And U.S. companies have a higher environmental standard set for manufacturing in the U.S. So we all should do our best to buy everything that we can in the U.S. And it also supports local jobs and the economy. We have some grant partners with our circular economy grant. Thank you to Eagle has helped us implement these new reusable stainless steel foodware programs in schools and organizations across Michigan. It's going on for a little while longer. Can't say how long, so jump on if you have the opportunity to get the help now that we are offering. And our subsidy partner is Plastic Free Restaurants. And I have 2 other nonprofits that we team up. We are trying really hard to help people get dishwashers if they need to. And then this subsidy, it really does cover right now probably more than what you see there. 80-90% of your cost to make the switch to buy the products. Being made in Michigan is a great idea to purchase from here. And we just think we don't know how long this subsidy will last for, but he's a great partner. So you basically can make the switch for very low, if not free, for any time you're getting rid of plastic or styrofoam. So in summary, our stainless steel foodware is the safest, stainless steel foodware is the safest and most durable option. Obviously, glass and ceramic are great things to eat off of, but they're not durable. Our products have received the highest level certification you can get from the Center for Environmental Health, tested for chemicals and safety concerns. And one thing I want to say is the Center for Environmental Health does have a great toolkit called Ditching Disposables. They have a lot of great information as well as upstream solutions. Every reason possible that you can think not to implement has been addressed. We Reuse is the only company in the USA to source, design, and make the products here with 100% recycled stainless steel. And once again, thank you to Eagle for helping us get this accomplished. And that is it. I will go ahead and stop sharing. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Connie. I'd now like to welcome our final speaker, Genevieve Rattray, Sustainability and Innovations Manager for the City of Ann Arbor. Genevieve, the floor is yours.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you to our hosts and my fellow panelists and to everyone in the audience today. I'm really excited to be talking shop and sharing everything that we're doing in Ann Arbor. Can I get a verbal confirmation you can see my screen okay?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. So let's talk about returnable containers and building physical and social infrastructure through A20's circular economy initiatives. So today I'm going to go over A20, our circular economy programming within the City of Ann Arbor's Office of Sustainability, our returnable containers pilot program that we call A2R3, and our vision forward, advancing to a municipal scale. So A20 is Ann Arbor's bold, community-wide plan to achieve carbon neutrality in 2030. It is audacious. It's a city-led initiative that brings restaurants and businesses and organizations together to reduce greenhouse gas, to expand clean energy and electrification, to cut waste, of course, circular economy practices, strengthen resilience, improve quality of life for everyone. A20 is not just a goal, but it's our living framework of actions and programs that make sustainability accessible and equitable here in Ann Arbor. Everything we do has equity at the core. So A20, our carbon neutrality plan, identifies 7 strategies, of which the 5th is strategy 5, how we reuse, use, and dispose of materials. And that is the strategy that my circularity team oversees. So within our team, we focus on natural resources, sustainable foods, consumer goods, and community resilience. And just a side note that our team is currently working on a robust engagement process of a circular economy action plan. And we're expecting to have a draft of this plan ready for public feedback by late spring, early summer. And we're incredibly excited about it. So how we define the circular economy is an economic system that creates values by keeping products and materials in use for as long as possible through practices like reuse and repair, sharing, lending, and other life-extending practices. By contrast, what we're all used to and what we exist within for the most part is a linear economy, which generates large amounts of waste. Products are manufactured, sold, briefly used, and then discarded, fueling environmental degradation and resource depletion. The notion of throwing things away is truly an illusion. Waste does not disappear. It accumulates with lasting consequences. On our team, we really think about things in 10 R's. I know we all grew up thinking and learning about the 3 R's, reduce, reuse, recycle. And these traditional 3R principles, while foundational to circular economy efforts, are limited in tackling the underlying factors that harm ecosystems and undermine economic sustainability. These strategies are primarily concerned with curtailing negative consequences rather than proactively generating positive environmental and social benefits. So beyond downstream waste management, it's really essential that we're focusing on the upstream measures such as thoughtful product design, Connie, and some of the great things you're working on, the right to repair, more sustainable consumption patterns. And just an example of that, while composting is crucial and critical and fantastic, the more effective solution is to minimize food waste at home, reducing the amount that even needs to be composted. So it's not just about what we do with the materials after using them, but it's also about designing waste out of our products, our behaviors, and our daily life. And one of the ways that we're doing that at the City of Ann Arbor is through A2R3, our returnable containers pilot program. So this program launched in 2021, back with a small, passionate group of businesses partnered with community volunteers. The city invested in the initial batch of containers, while volunteers established a smooth checkout and check-in process. Our restaurants enthusiastically offered this service to their customers. They hosted return bins and were committed to sanitizing every single container, which is no small feat to do in-house, and a remarkable demonstration of the dedication and the collaboration that exists in Ann Arbor. After a few months, we noticed excitement was incredibly high, but participation didn't quite match that. And through this pilot program, we've been learning some invaluable insights. So it is clear that there is an appetite for reuse in Ann Arbor, but we also have this critical truth that it highlighted with broad participation, so a wide scale of a system, convenience can be built, allowing reuse to move beyond this niche idea and become a practical everyday choice within the community. So this early experience confirmed that there's potential for scaling and lasting impact, and that it is within reach. A lot of the folks leading the efforts are right here in Ann Arbor. These are some of the key partners that brought this forward: Zingerman's Delicatessen and Next Door Cafe, Cinnaholic, El Harissa, Ginger Deli, Miss Kim. Almost all of these, you can still today participate in A2R3. They are truly moving this vision forward. So fast forward to 2024, a funding opportunity arose that could potentially finance taking the returnable containers program to scale. Together with the support of key partners, businesses, institutions, and organizations across Ann Arbor, there was a vision that was co-created, and together we submitted a $20 million grant proposal. Our proposal was to create a universal citywide system for returnable food and beverageware containers, replacing single-use packaging across Ann Arbor from our institutions, public schools, university venues, restaurants. It placed equity, much like our A20 carbon neutrality plan. Everything we do places equity at the forefront, and we did that in our design process by introducing a fully accessible return incentive program, so much like a library card of sort, where every individual in every household would have access to checking out the returnable containers. So then, alas, January 2025, the grant disappeared, very sadly, and we have this beautiful vision. We have invested partners, key stakeholders, the public who is excited about it, but we're back to the drawing board on seeking the capital to make this happen. So why go big? Why take it to a municipal scale? There's environmental factors, economic factors, and just the user and server experience of it. So a citywide system means bigger environmental benefits and a real alternative to single-use packaging. A well-used system means lower costs for everyone, making it more competitive with single use. And then a streamlined system means that there's a streamlined technology program that will be easy for users to use. There's a streamlined educational program, and it's just simpler for everyone to participate, from the business to the end user. And how we envision a citywide system to work, we establish a centralized wash hub. Consumers borrow a cup or container, whether it's from campus or from a restaurant or a cafe or a cafeteria. They return the empty cup into one of the appropriate and strategically placed drop-off bins. Bins are emptied on a regular schedule, items brought back to the central washing facility, where they are washed and sanitized and then redistributed to all of the participating venues. Oops. So where we are today, of course, back in 2021, we launched the pilot, and we've been moving through feasibility studies, system designs, and now we are preparing for funding and next steps once we achieve the capital. And in the meantime, and a continued push to normalize reuse across Ann Arbor, the Guild, which is the organization responsible for the Ann Arbor Art Fair, which we all know and love, they collaborated with Bold Reuse and brought returnable cups to the A2 Arttoberfest last October through a Sustaining Ann Arbor grant together that the city awarded for this work to be done. And it was a wild success. We had 98% return rate for the 9-ounce cups and a 92% return rate for the 16-ounce cups that weekend. And what we find as some of our key takeaways is that we have a strong coalition of the willing here in Ann Arbor. We are fortunate to be home to passionate, innovative, collaborative individuals, businesses, and institutions. The reality is it's these innovators that have led the effort thoughtfully, co-designing this initiative, bringing it to life, and advancing it. And together we have an opportunity to create a model for cities across Michigan, even in context of Public Act 389 of 2016, which is commonly referred to the ban on banning single-use plastic. So for those of you who are joining from outside of Michigan, while other states are putting bans on single-use plastic, we actively have a ban on banning single-use plastic. So this is a design that we believe, if when actualized, could be a blueprint for cities to still move forward with the work despite that. Together, we are doing research. We are doing what research shows is essential for success, and that what has not been done yet across the US, and that is scaling to a municipal level. And we're really excited about the possibility of this work. So gratitude to all of the community partners across Ann Arbor who have uplifted this work and brought it forward. And thank you.
Great. Thank you so much to all of our panelists. I would now like to kick off the question and answer for our panel. And for everyone joining us live, please submit your questions through the Zoom question and answer or chat functions. Thank you for all of you who have been submitting questions, and we've got a couple of them queued up right now. We'll start off with how many reuses is needed to be referred to as a reusable material according to the standard? I believe I can answer that, which with twice or more. And if anybody has any further, okay, all right, we'll move on then. So how can we ensure proper sanitation of reusables with large outdoor music festivals like Electric Forest?
That is a great question. And I think that is a very common question that we get all the time is like, how do they get cleaned? And I guess not seeing or knowing where they are cleaned is difficult for folks. But when we address that question, it really is, it's our system of washing and sanitizing is the same that is done when you're at a restaurant. If you're going out to a bar, you're going out to eat, the cups are washed and sanitized. And maybe even more so than at a restaurant, we go through a full cups come in, they're sorted out. We make sure that if any trash or anything like that got into the cups, we're removing those cups immediately, and then they're going into a dish rack, and they're going through a industrial dishwasher where it is heat. It's low heat with chlorine, low heat to protect the materials, and it's cleaned, and then it is air dried. And once those are air dried, then they are quality and checked by our staff, our operations team. They're going through and looking at all of these cups and these materials to make sure that there are no lipstick stains, that there's no sort of residuals left over. And then if they are, then those go back onto the wash line, or they are what we call retired. And if it is no longer up to the standard or up to par with reuse, then that is either put in another pile to then be recycled. We have worked with a number of very large events in the Seattle area. It's really awesome to see, Genevieve, all that work that you guys are doing over there to get reuse on a municipal level. And in Seattle, there are many large scale events, 3-day events, and we're turning cups around to get there and to get back. And we're making sure that these cups are, so it's not like the cups are washed on site, but what happens is the cups are used, brought away at the end of the day for the event, new cups are given, and then those cups that were used the previous day are then washed and sanitized and have time to go through a very intense process. And at Bold Reuse, I can speak for us in saying that we are up to par with global food manufacturing standards. So our wash hubs are extremely, extremely clean and extremely taking into consideration quality assurance and keeping people healthy and not getting sick. So I hope that answers that question. If you want to continue that conversation a little bit more, please feel free to reach out to us at Bold Reuse, and we're happy to help you navigate a little bit more in depth of the concerns you may have on the washing process for large venue or large scale events.
And I'd love to jump in quickly as well. Something that I think about as someone who worked in the hospitality industry for years and years while I was in college. I mean, sanitizing reusables is something we've always done. You go out to dinner at a restaurant, you're using reusables. You're using plates and silverware that the person before you used and it went through their sanitation. So it's not anything new. The scale might be different, but it's not anything new, and we all are already using reusables. It's just that we've moved away from having them as regularly. So before, when you would go to a coffee shop and you'd sit down in-house and have a cup of coffee, it was in a reusable. And just we've moved away, whether it's because of the pandemic or for other reasons, we've moved to where so many things are in to go, whether it's convenience or however. So we've moved away from something we were already doing to a degree. And I think it's about just remembering that things were sanitized and we were using them quite regularly to begin with.
Great. Yeah, thank you. That was great. Quick question on cost. So does the cost of reusables versus disposables take into account the labor needed to clean the products? And then I noted somebody asked about a refundable deposit for the containers. And I think, Connie, you responded to that in the chat, but if anyone wants to take on kind of the cost analysis piece of this.
I can talk about a statistic from Upstream Plastic-Free Restaurants and Rethink Disposable all did an analysis, and washing the money that you're going to save does cover the cost of in-house dishwashing. It's a challenge for a lot of people, but we have to move somewhere, and it is doable. And those three organizations have said you still come out ahead. I mean, if you think about it, you're not buying the products for the rest of your existence there. So yes, you do have to include some labor. If you can try to be creative about it and maybe wash dishes every other day or use some staff that you already have. So far that we have seen that it's been positive along those lines. And the other question, I'm sorry, Rose, was that I kind of answered. I forget what the other question was.
Yeah, so the two of them were the refundable deposit and does the cost of reusables versus disposables take into account the labor needed?
Oh, the deposit. Yeah. So we've sat in many national calls for the last couple of years, and there are so many ways to get people to use reusable. Oh my goodness, the sky's the limit. You can have them give you an extra $1 and come back and get your $1 before you leave. There's a lot of different ways that you can do it. I think the public is smarter than we give them credit for, and they're willing to do it. They're willing to do these things. We just got to step out and start doing them and see if they take anything. We got to try all sorts of things across the board. There's so many different things that we have seen. So yes, and I do think if you're talking about an event, like even an outdoor event, sorry, I have hair in my eyes. And you're talking about reusable, a couple things. You could require that they only use the cup once, and that is still, put it in a bin. You only use it once if you're worried about somebody bringing their own cup up to get refilled. I don't know, Starbucks lets you bring a cup, I think. I don't drink coffee. So, but like Genevieve said, we've been doing this a long time. It's kind of a lot of other sustainable things that we all kind of forgot that we should be doing. So we haven't seen any problems with the dishwashing as far as health and sanitation. So, it's just like you wash your dishes at home in the dishwasher. So.
Well, thank you. And thank you to everyone for attending, and thank you to our panelists. Before you leave today, please take the very short survey that's going to pop up at the conclusion of the webinar. We'll be sending out a recording of the webinar and slides for everyone to all the registrants before the end of the week. Also, please consider becoming a member or checking out our website for upcoming webinars, in-person events, or other opportunities at MiSBF.org. Thank you again so much to our panelists, and thank you to everybody for being so engaged and for all of your questions and comments in the chat. And we hope you all have a wonderful week and join us for our following series.
Thank you, and thank you to Michigan Sustainable Business Forum for all these webinars. They're going to be great. It's going to be fun to attend. Thank you.